Let's try this again. Let's try it again. Is my audio better this time? Let's check the audio before I get started. The audio was very bad before, and I apologize for that. I don't know what's going on with my equipment, but a carpenter doesn't blame his tools, and I apologize for that. I don't know what's going on with my equipment, but a carpenter doesn't blame his tools, and I apologize for that. I don't know what's going on with my equipment. All right. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? I think we're going to try this again. Has the audio been fixed? I don't know. What's up? What's up? What's up? I think we're going to try this again. Has the audio been fixed? I don't know. What's up? What's up? What's up? I think we're going to try this. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there it is. All right, the audio is better. Let me see what combination of things I push. Okay. All right. That's fine. Welcome everyone. Sorry for the terrible audio. These live streams are actually getting worse. WG Phil, I appreciate that, my friend. Happy birthday. Happy birthday for WG Phil. Everybody gives WG Phil a happy birthday. Congratulations on getting 1 year older. Also, hopefully 1 year smarter. 1 year closer to achieving a dream. You know what I mean? So we got a plethora of videos of topics today. Not quite a plethora because this is going to be short. We're going to talk about Chris Jericho coping. Jericho is coming up with all these excuses to why WWE beat AEW. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that show. We're also going to talk about Bill Goldberg and him saying that wrestling characters lack depth. We're also going to have a discussion about Alicia Fox and her commentary about how she was treated in WWE. So we're going to start with Chris Jericho, because why shouldn't I start with Chris Jericho? Chris Jericho, it says, quote, Chris Jericho warns WWE shouldn't get too far up your own ass about beating AEW in the ratings. This is from the messenger.com. Oh, brother, this is going to be very, very interesting. Why isn't Jericho on Busted Open Radio and all these interviews instead of Tony? I guess we're about to figure out why. We're about to find out why, because Jericho himself ain't much better. Chris Jericho said, and I quote, You can only bring in Cena and Undertaker and Cody and everybody else so much because nobody wants to work their secondary show all the time. And it was a fun little, hey, F you AEW. I didn't even worry about it. It was just an opportunity to stick it to us with stunt casting. I told Tony, well, if you want to fire back, bring in Shaq and Snoop Dogg and those types of guys, Mike Tyson. But Tony didn't do that. We relied on our show and our guys and our girls, and that's the way it's always been for us. This would be like a football game where you bring in all your top stars from the years prior and beat the other team 30-26, he argued. It's like a video game. Let's bring in Tom Brady from 5 years ago and then play him for one game against Chris Jericho. Okay, you guys won, but you only won 30-26. You only won by 4 points. Well, Jericho, Jesus in heaven. I don't remember anybody acting like this when AEW was like steamrolling NXT week after week after week. They were gloating. They were constantly using former WWE talent to boost ratings. They were threatening to bring in more WWE talent to boost ratings. They were doing all kinds of stuff, And it was crazy to me that this guy would go this route instead of just saying, hey, they had a good plan. They had a hell of a plan. And their plan was to bring in, they knew that, the young talent the NXT stars, Braun Breaker and Carmelo Hayes and all of those guys who folks really don't know. Yeah, people were going to choose to see Edge for the first time in the AEW ring over choosing to watch those guys. But he didn't think that way. He didn't think that it was fair for AEW to have Chris Jericho and Edge and Danielson and Christian and guys who've been on TV for 25 or 30 years. I mean, WWE didn't do anything that AEW didn't do. The only difference is WWE didn't put any of them in the ring. The only one they put in the ring was Dominic Mysterio, and they put Asuka in the ring. That was it. Everything else was basically like an extended cameo. And people were interested in what they were going to do on the show. But to me, it doesn't matter. All right. AEW did what they usually do. For instance, Tony Khan doesn't like spending money on celebrities anyway. He likes wrestling. So his idea to counter Raw and SmackDown and all that kind of stuff is to just have longer and better matches. But, and then he says, so don't get too far up your own ass because you didn't do that good of a job as far as crushing us. And our show was better than theirs, quite frankly. So it doesn't bother me. It's competition. It's good for the fans. It's good for the companies. Now, apparently, he's doing the rounds because he's going to be in a terrible Christian movie. Didn't we talk about that yet? That Chris Jericho is going to be in some kind of Hallmark movie as an aging rock star. It looks so bad. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to be able to stomach watching it, but it looks so bad. And it's like some kind of Christian movie. It looks so corny. It looks super corny. But I think that's what he's doing here. Is that he's doing some kind of press junket for that kind of stuff. But WWE could have brought in celebrities and all that kind of stuff too for NXT if they wanted to. They chose not to. Well, they brought in the equivalent of celebrities, which is like Cody and Undertaker and all that kind of stuff. But it's very strange. AJ3 says he should be worried Lola Vice and Danny Parma drew more viewers than he and Powerhouse Hobbs in one segment. Well, it's Danny Palmer. And yeah, Lola Vice, I mean, who's going to turn away from that piece of Latin American thickness to watch old man Jericho? Really, who's gonna do that? But I'm not surprised, man. Jericho, he's a homer. He's playing for the home team. He wants everybody to think that AEW is great, but this ain't nothing but coke, dog. He took the L. If he would have won, trust me, he wouldn't have said, "Man, it was close. We won, but it was close." He would have said, "Nah, they did. They threw their best shots at us, even though they didn't. They didn't book a match or, they promoted some of that stuff, but they didn't book a match against AEW or anything like that. They booked for some stars to be on the show to help the young guys not get blown out and embarrassed, like they used to when AEW was kicking the ass of NXT. And everybody thought, oh, the NXT guys, they're stars now. They're drawing big bills. You remember that? All the same guys that are now in AEW. Adam Cole and, Roderick Strong and, all these guys. These guys were the stars of NXT when NXT was getting their shit kicked in by AEW every week. And the same AEW fan base thought they were lame and stupid and all this kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden, it's, well, they're the better wrestlers anyway. I mean, oh, they're better than they are. Oh really? Okay. Okie dokie. Do it matter to me? No. Hate to break it to you, bub. But it doesn't matter whether you lost 30-26. It only matters that you lost. And I wouldn't lose any sleep over it if we're being honest. You know, like why does it even matter? You know, it seems weird to me that we even care about this. Chris Jericho already ruined his legacy in AEW. Saying what happened to Edge. Look, I'm not going to say he ruined his legacy. When you got a real legacy, very little can diminish it. You know, there's people out there who, again, they want Chris Benoit in various halls of fame. They think murdering your child doesn't even diminish your legacy, but it does. I'm sorry, murdering your own child diminishes your legacy. I hate to break it to you, but we're looking at a situation where Jericho, he can't say much else other than what he said. We lost, but you had to have all these ringers. But not understanding that this is the exact same thing that Tony Khan was doing. Like, he could have had Edge wrestle in the match on Collision. He chose specifically to have Edge wrestle his first match against NXT. He chose to do that. So are you upset that people decided to do the opposite? Like, are you really that upset? I don't know. Like, I don't understand why you would be. So I say take it on the chin. Understand that you tried and you failed. You threw a punch at the top guy. He threw a punch back. You wilted. It's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you get into a fight you don't win. And then it's Tony Khan mostly who picked this fight. Crossface Ray. What do you think about the Edge and Ricky Stark situation? I know people have made a lot out of the Edge and Ricky Starks thing. People are saying like there's some backstage heat, but I don't think so. I think that they probably, had some heat in the moment, but then, it was probably there's any lingering gang thing about it. I don't think that Edge got to the back and then pulled Ricky Starks to the side and had words with him over it. If that's, let's say that. I'm pretty sure he said whatever he had to say in the moment. Then Ricky Starks replied, and then he probably thought to himself, that was funny. It did make Edge look silly because he shouldn't be doing what he did. But ultimately, I don't think that they have any legitimate heat. I think people are making too much of it. I don't see Edge being the kind of guy who would get an attitude about that. He probably thought it was fun to trade barbs with Ricky Starks on the fly, which is something he probably wouldn't have been able to do in WWE. So he probably thought it was fun. The Skills H-Town. I'm not sure why they won't let it go. Keep bringing it up won't help you at all. Just reminding everyone of the L. Yeah, I mean, they just keep reminding people. They keep talking about it. NXT didn't even mention winning the ratings last week. They just moved on. They got 790,000 this week, which was more than I thought they would get. So the fall off wasn't that bad. It was still a fall off because of course it was, but it wasn't that bad. AEW had a bounce back, which was expected because the show is back on at its normal time and its normal place. So yeah, I mean, everything is right with the world. They're going to be going head to head again soon. I think they're going to be going head to head on a Friday, or is it a Saturday? One or the other. But ultimately, I don't see this as being a thing that we need to keep talking about outside of the week that it occurred in. Like, yeah, was it fun? Yeah, it was fun to talk about it. But now it seems to me like AEW is out here in full coat mode. I mean, once Tony Khan had his meltdown, it was over. There's nothing Jericho can say that can embarrass the company more than what Tony has already come out and said. Tony's attacks and his general demeanor about this whole thing has been a huge L for the AEW community. They're very embarrassed right now. And I think Jericho's a little embarrassed too. I don't think he was surprised in it. I think he was surprised by it. I think he probably figured it was going to be closer than that. And hell, I thought it would be closer than that too, but seemingly we don't know anything. We're guys who follow the business, but we're not in the business. These Skills H-Town, last night's Dynamite once again had to drop the ticket price to $10 a week before the show. That's where that's what they should be concentrating on. I agree. They certainly should be concentrating on selling more tickets and doing more things. Mongo, did you see the trailer for Snow White and the Evil Queen? I did not. I heard that somebody didn't, like, the Daily Wire just buy like the the Snow White IP or something to that effect. I feel like that just happened, but I'm not interested in any more Snow Whites, if we're being honest. Where Tiffany Stratton was on NXT this week. She didn't wrestle, but she's on the show. They seem to be building her up to have a match with. They're not building her up. They're building up not Tiffany Stratton. God damn it! They're building up Fallon Henley to wrestle Tiffany Stratton in a match. So she'd probably be getting back in the ring soon. But Jericho coping is pretty funny if you ask me. I feel bad for him, really. He's too old for this, man. All he had to say was, look what they did in order to win. Okay. All right, let's go to Alicia Fox. Alicia Fox is still talking trash about some of the people who used to work in WWE. And she is not happy. So apparently everybody's got a podcast. So Elijah Burke, the Pope. I'm going to tell you something, brother. The Pope, he's doing Dusty. And only Pope can do Dusty the way everybody does Dusty. So Pope apparently has a podcast, and he had Alicia Fox on it. And she continued to take shots at WWE. And she says that she felt exploited, which, I think she said before. But she says, quote, as long as that particular company has been doing blackface and our bosses have been doing these characters, it makes sense to me now that they were treating me like this, because for me, I didn't study the history of wrestling going forward. I lived that experience linearly. Okay? I did what they told me to do. I drove those hours. I was on a tour bus with my fiance being driven around. Also wasn't bringing camera crews in to exploit my friends on an already exploited agreement. There's a whole nother thing. But then in the history of that particular, they got people on reality shows all day. But guess what? Since social media and everybody's their independent brand, that was years ago, okay? Years ago. This is called tangential speech, okay? She didn't really finish a thought. She says, as long as that particular company has been doing blackface and our bosses have been doing these characters, for starters, what are these characters? Is the characters blackface? Because I think there's been a couple of blackface moments in WWE. Of course, I believe, was it Road Dogg was in blackface, or was it X-Pac? I think it was X-Pac that was in blackface, right? And there might have been one other time when somebody did blackface. Was there? Roddy Piper did half blackface. What else? Did anybody else do blackface in WWE? Goldust had black face paint, but he wasn't supposed to be black. Triple H was in blackface when he was doing The Rock. I don't think he was wearing makeup then. He had the bushy eyebrows and the Jericho thing. Yeah, it was X-Pac that was in blackface. When did Triple H do blackface? I don't remember Triple H doing blackface in WWE. We know that Vince, did the do-rag thing. Triple H had brown spray. Oh, okay. So he's wearing like tanner or something like that. Okay. I'm not gonna say tanner is blackface because pretty much all of these guys are like super brown now. Some of them are like so brown they're orange. But she says that she didn't study the history of wrestling going forward. She lived that experience linearly. Okay, what does that have to do with blackface and her treatment? Miz did blackface? When did the Miz do blackface? I don't think the Miz did blackface. But then she started saying how her experience about being on the hours with the tour bus. Oh, Miz did The Rock. I don't think he was in blackface when he did The Rock though. I think he was wearing a Rock. He's wearing like a head thing. Was he? He wasn't brown, was he? Let's take a look at this. Because my recollection of Miz being in blackface, I have no recollection of that. Miz imitates The Rock. I don't think the Miz is in blackface. No, the Miz isn't in blackface. He's not wearing any kind of skin coloring at all. I'm looking at a picture of him right here. He's just wearing a baldy. No, he's wearing a bald cap, but he's not. His skin isn't even brown. He took the baldy. He's the same skin color he usually is. Oh yeah, Triple H did do that, the little monkey thing when Mark Henry is coming out. I did see that. I did see a clip of that. I think they edited that out of the live show though. Like there's been a couple of unsavory moments, but what that got to do with her being sent to developmental? Because in 2015 there were other black wrestlers on the main roster that didn't get sent back to developmental. So what did that have to do with her being black and being sent back to developmental? New Day was around at that same time, right? Roddy Piper was in like half blackface, and that got taken out of the off of Peacock. That sucks because that's one of those weird things that you absolutely positively have to show people and with no context. Try to see if they can figure out why that's happening. But let's get back to what she was saying. I got distracted by people saying the Miz was in blackface. So because I wasn't finished with her particular statement. She talks about her relationship with Vince, saying that Vince was always very nice to her. I'm not going to go into the entire detail. And then she starts talking about the NXT girls coming in, and she felt like she was the last of the Mohicans. She says, I remember walking out of that meeting with a lot of us from FCW, OVW, like us old school, our generation, and wondering if he was telling us the truth. So I guess she's talking about Vince. She was talking to Vince about seniority in terms of the girls. And she says, there's no way we're going to have to be these utility talent. Basically, they didn't want to be enhancement talent to the NXT girls. She says, I even went to one. I'm not going to mention his name. And I asked, I go, what do you mean? From the history we had from the first storyline, I thought that communication in my mind seemed decent. But no, it was not. I just remember doing business or something. It was such a flat whatever. But eventually, I saw a lot of spirits being broken. I saw a lot of people fall into their own situations. Whenever NXT came, it just really changed a lot for a lot of individuals. And not just me. And it was hard to see my friends suffer like that. I knew in my heart they were. So apparently the divas are being mistreated because the NXT girls are coming in and they're given top spots and everything. And the divas girls are being treated like enhancement talent. And she didn't think that was right. She thought there should be a level of seniority and that they should be going over. But no, by that point in time, in 2015, Alicia Fox had been around for a while at that point. And I don't think I don't remember what the hell was going on in women's wrestling at the time. I'm not even about to pretend that I remember this stuff off the top of my head. But I think we were several years off of Alicia Fox being a top contender or a champion of any kind. I think that we were far off of that by this point, and she should have been an enhancement talent. And it seemed like that was she had a name, and she was being used to help the other girls. I don't see anything wrong with that. She was in a position, she wasn't going to go back to the top. So what else are you going to do? They're changing the positioning of what women's wrestling is, and you're stuck in the middle. That's like the biz is talking about here. She's sandwiched in between these two eras. And this happens a lot, This is what I call the Tito Santana, right? Like the Tito Santana, where you're a top guy in one generation, and then you get stuck in between those two generations. All of a sudden, you're El Matador, and you're doing jobs to Shawn Michaels, and you're doing jobs for all the guys who are coming in and about to be a top guy or somewhere else, and you're stuck in that middle space, and nobody can explain why you are there and why you can't go up. You're just kind of squished right here in this spot where you probably should have left last year or 2 years ago before this happened to you, but because you're stuck here, you're stuck here. Mr. Perfect was in that spot too. In between the end of WCW and the beginning of the New Generation era, when she was, something from a bygone era that's basically being used to put over other guys. And, being in that Tito Santana spot, I get it. It sucks. But we were far off from Alicia Fox being, in the top of near the top of women's wrestling. It wasn't going to happen for her. So her being a utility player seems fair to me. I don't see that as being anything racial. I don't see it as being anything that is problematic, because I don't remember Alicia Fox being great at anything particularly, So I don't know. It's very bizarre. But she's also, of course, still going back after the Bella Twins. I'm not sure if I want to go into that. But she continues talking about the NXT talent. So I do want to talk about that, but I want to get to the business comment first. Best example for men is Naito in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's too young for Tanahashi and then too old to go over Okada. That is true. Like he's a perfect stuck in the middle guy for New Japan, where some people still consider him a top guy, but I haven't considered Naito a top guy in like 2 or 3 years. Like he's not really even in the conversation of being a top guy in New Japan. So for me, he's going to be the top guy in terms of Wrestle Kingdom, but that's because of the storyline, his history with Sonata. Other than that, I wouldn't see Naito as being a top guy or a draw in any respect. I think he stopped giving a fuck years ago too. But Naito is a good example. There's plenty of guys where this stuff happens to. It's not like it just happens to Alicia Fox. Whenever there's a changing of the guard, there's always going to be people stuck in the middle. And the people who are stuck in the middle are always going to end up doing a bunch of jobs. And it is what it is, man. Somebody's got to do it. The people from the previous generation, all of the top stars are probably going to retire or leave, or they're going to be injured or whatever, and they're going to be out of there. And then all the mid-carders are going to still be hanging around, but there's going to be new mid-carders coming. So you have to get out of the way. It's unfortunate, but that's how it works. You get beat in order to make somebody else. You have your name, your reputation, or whatever. And if they keep you around, then it's clearly because they like you. And you could keep, being Dolph Ziggler and keep getting paid, and and everything will work out for you. Or you can get pissy and quit or whatever. Now, she's going to continue talking about being a quote utility player against NXT. She says, I knew it from the day they just randomly put us together so we could be utility talents for all NXTs, Charlotte, Becky, and Paige, and then Team Bad, you know? So I wasn't just a utility spare tire for them. She's talking about the Bella Twins. I was also the damn push buggy for all three of us for the rest of the generations to come up to go ahead and get the title to quit at the end of the day. Monet. Give me Monet. So anyway, then what I'll say just about the evolution thing, it's really interesting to me because I think I get more pissed today looking at the girls' podcast talking about their experience. Straight strength and hope and truth, and it's crazy. It's so crazy because you know why? Some of them have been flown to LA to get gear. Some of them have been doing promiscuous things on set, whatever's going on. I never knew all that, but now y'all on podcasts, post on social media. So who was the other character in the locker is just bizarre because I wonder if they're getting their royalties today because that's all I want to know. What? Okay, let's break this one down because she seemed to have somewhat of a point, and she's making a comment here. She was talking about being thrust together with the Bella Twins and basically them being utility players to put over NXT talents. And basically says that, you know, she wants them being beat up by Team Bad. Now, Team Bad, if I remember correctly, was Tamina, Natalia, not Tamina, Natalia, Tamina, Trinity, and Sasha Banks, right? So then she says that the three of them were the utility players for the rest of the generations to come to go ahead and get the title to quit at the end of the day. So does she feel a certain way that she had to put over Sasha Banks only for Sasha Banks to turn around and quit? Which I can understand. You know, I know a lot of old wrestlers, they do get an attitude if they put over somebody and then they don't live up to expectations or they quit on themselves or they quit the business or whatever. You kind of get pissy about it. But this is Alicia Fox again. What other? I hate to make it sound like this, but what other value did she have? Team Bad was a vehicle for Sasha and everybody. Yeah, it was pretty damn clear, wasn't it? It was pretty obvious, wasn't it? So again, she got paid pretty decent money to help make a new star. Instead of taking pride in being making that new star, she's kind of like, yeah, we did all these jobs. Basically, just saying we did all these jobs for these girls, and then they turn around and quit. You know, which the only one that quit was Sasha Banks. She's the only one who quit. Well, I guess Trinity quit too, but she wasn't really going to be the star out of that whole thing anyway. I mean, and she also, you know, is throwing a lot of what they call shade at the Bella Twins. She don't like the Bella Twins at all, brother. Ooh wee. Her dislike of the Bella Twins is becoming quite legendary at this point. It's strange because they used to be friends. It seems like they used to be friends. Do you think WWE, this is Crossface Ray, do you think WWE regrets putting so much, I guess you mean stock, behind Sasha Banks? No. I mean, look, WWE does this all the time. They push a wrestler, the wrestler, you know, gets pretty big. They get, you know, a huge ego. They think they're bigger than the company or bigger than the position that they were put in, or they have some kind of petty grievance. And then they end up leaving. Brock did it. You know, other guys have done it. CM Punk did it. A bunch of people have done it. And they get pushed for a little while, and then they find some reason to get upset and decide, I'm out of here. And then, you know, people are just kind of like, yeah, you're right. You know, it's like, well, no, he's not right. You know, she's not right. Her being used as a jobber was the right thing for her to do. If she wanted a job, because she wasn't going to be at the top of the card. You know, like, what more? Again, there's really only two jobs in wrestling. Either you're going to be the person on top drawing money, or you're going to be the person in the middle trying to help somebody become the top guy drawing money. That's the only two jobs there is. That's it. Either you're the guy drawing the money, or you're the guy helping the guy get to that point where he can start drawing money. That's it. Okay, there's no third option. If you're an enhancement talent, most people want to be a solid enough mid-carder where you probably win more than you lose. You're still pretty much an enhancement talent. It's your job to make the other person look good. Now, you may get more offense in than usual. You may win more matches than usual. They call him jobber to the stars. Kane was a jobber to the stars for a really, really, really long time. Oh, too long, if we're being honest. All right. His role wasn't to be the top guy drawing money. His role was to be the guy to help make the other guy. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good job. Now, if you're on the way lower end of the stage where you're doing jobs on main event, I can see maybe you having an attitude, because the person who beat you ain't going anywhere either because they're on this goddamn same show with you. But if you're in the smack dab in the middle of Raw, you've been there for 5, 10, 15 years already, you get a solid 8-minute match and you lose, what's the big deal, man? What's the problem? If you're Kofi Kingston right now, what's the big deal? He's not going to be main event again. He's not going to fall all the way off to being off television for weeks and weeks and weeks either. He's in a good spot. I don't see the problem. He's not going to be the top guy anymore. He's not going to be the guy drawing the money. So it's going to be his job to help other people draw money. I don't know where him doing jobs for Ivar is going to help him, but whatever. Who knows? Ivar might draw money next. You don't see Baron Corbin complaining about being an enhancement talent. Yeah, and it came out of nowhere because Baron Corbin is the kind of guy who wins unexpectedly, and you're kind of surprised that he starts winning stuff. But it's him being an NXT helping put people over, and he's not complaining because it's a good use of him. I mean, I'm pretty sure he don't want to be on SmackDown doing the same thing. In NXT, he's actually valuable. He's higher on the card in NXT than he would be if he'd have been on SmackDown, which is why I don't see the problem when she's talking about getting sent down to developmental. It's like, no, it's a good thing that you got sent back to developmental because at least they saw something. They could have just fired you. Like, that's the option. The option is they could have fired you. If they saw something in you, they say, hey, either you can get better or you can go help other people. That's good. They often send people to developmental to help others, or they'll keep you around. And I think X-Pac told this story that he was essentially, the measuring stick. That Vince saw him as the guy that if you could have a good match with X-Pac, he felt comfortable pushing you. And I think I forgot where he told this story at, but he was the guy that when a new guy came in, Vince put him with X-Pac to teach him so X-Pac can teach him the WWE style, and so Vince can see what the guy's got, if he's going to bitch and moan and complain or whatever, and see if he can make him. And then they tell the story about Chris Jericho, where X-Pac basically was the guy who was responsible for Chris Jericho. Because when Jericho first came in, Vince hated him. He decided that's when his push died really, really quickly. And then he put him with X-Pac. And basically said, if X-Pac can't get anything out of you, we're just going to cut our losses and be done with it. That's a perfect spot for a guy like X-Pac. You're not going to fire him, but you're not going to make him world champion either. So you're going to use him to be the guy to make somebody else. He's going to be the guy that's going to, show you the ropes, help you learn the style and, catch you up and all this kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good job. That's a great fucking job, actually. If you can't be the world champion, if you get to be the guy who molded the guy who becomes world champion and main event WrestleMania and everything, that's great. Shelton Benjamin's pretty much his claim to fame is how he was training partners with Brock Lesnar. Nobody even remembers that he was Intercontinental Champion and all that kind of stuff anymore. I mean, and then when you look back at it, those guys clearly do a good job. Like X-Pac did an excellent job with Chris Jericho. Because Jericho, when he came into WWE, he didn't know how to bump and feed, and X-Pac had to teach him how to do that. He didn't wrestle in lifts, and Vince wanted him to wrestle in lifts. So he had spent all that time working with X-Pac. He learned how to wrestle in lifts. So there's all this stuff that he helped Jericho. And Jericho already had almost a 10 years of experience at this point. And it seems to pretty much be the same level of thing. But Alicia Fox clearly is no X-Pac. But there was something there that they wanted to transfer to other people, and she couldn't get it in her mind. She thought it should still be about her and seniority. I get it though. I can completely understand that she probably got issues with Sasha Banks because Sasha's ego was out of control, and her ego was out of control even back in NXT. It was just a little bit more undercover than it would become several years later when she started saying she should main event WrestleMania and she's a bigger star than Roman Reigns. The Biz, Sasha not only was a top 7 merch seller for years, but she helped put together a lot of matches, storylines, and titles. Sasha and Bayley put together that female Hell in a Cell, tag belts, etc. Yes, that is true. Sasha Banks did a lot. And that's why, I'm kind of, even though I say she's a diva, I just speak facts about Sasha Banks. She's a diva. She gets on my nerves, but she's an incredibly talented young lady. I think she got to a point where she got lost in the gimmick and she needed to pull back a little bit. But when she came back from that long excursion she went on, and she came back a worse promo, when she started having the blue hair, she was terrible, bro. Her matches were still good, but her character work had fallen off a cliff. And that's because her ego was so out of control. And I was just like, ugh, something needs to happen. I think Mercedes Moné is I'm not sure if we've gotten full ego out of Mercedes Moné yet. She's just happy to be there in terms of, going to New Japan and all this kind of stuff. She's just happy to be there. I wonder how much longer that's going to last before her ego kicks in and she starts pissing people off over there too. It's going to happen eventually. This discussion is like Gene Hackman being mad at Christopher Reeves because he wants to be Superman. Yes, it's like you get cast in the role, and you got to take up your accession, your role. Yep, JBL was perfect for that role for John Cena. He was the guy. Yeah, he was stuck in the middle a little bit. JBL, he would really be stuck in the middle 3 years later, like in 2008 and 2009, where he's basically just being used to put over other people. But 2006, yeah, everybody knew when he got that long title run, he had it to lose it to somebody. That his title run being that ridiculously long, for starters, I figure, in retrospect, he only needed to be champion once. He didn't need to be champion more than once. So him having that really long title run, for starters, I was surprised it was that long. But looking back at it, it was that long for a reason. Because they wanted to really, really establish him as a main eventer because it was never coming to happen again. They were never going back to him. Okay. So it was about him being able to make other people. And he did a good job of it, and he still was the same character. He didn't lose. He lost a lot of matches, but he didn't lose much because he was such a strong character that he can go out there and cut a promo and get back over. The Miz does that stuff all the time. He's perfect in his fucking role. The Miz has been doing this shit for 8-9 years now, where he's just been the guy who goes out there, I'm the Miz, and I'm awesome, and he loses in 30 seconds. Then he turns around, wins a championship, nobody can beat him for some odd reason. Then he loses that championship, and he's back to losing matches in 2 minutes. And he comes out there, cuts a promo, gets punched in the face. It's like some people are not meant to be at the tippy top. It's just, it ain't for everybody. Some people are hardcore Holly. You know, and she was hardcore Holly, and she just didn't like it, which is very unfortunate. What is Triple H's obsession with Zoe Stark? I think I don't know. I have no idea what he sees in Tegan Knox, but Zoe Stark, at least she's good in the ring. And I think that we're talking about somebody in Tegan Knox who, I mean, not Tegan Knox, but Zoe Stark, who is going to end up as the person to make other people in the future. So she probably win the women's title and have a decent run, and then spend the rest of her time putting people over. Now Triple H is in charge. Why Mercedes never bothered to go back? Well, she can't just go back on her contract. She probably still she's been injured for most of this time now. So I would imagine her contract is not up yet. They probably added some time to it because she's been hurt, which is going to give her the opportunity to work AEW and all this kind of stuff too. I wouldn't be surprised that after her New Japan contract is up, that Triple H, being the mark for her that he is, that he doesn't drop a whole lot of money on her and bring her back in. I wouldn't be surprised at all. In fact, I kind of expect it. You know, I expect her to become very, very, very overpaid in the next few years. I expect her to be very overpaid. And you know what? It might be more money in a Sasha Banks return than if she'd actually stayed. And sometimes that's the case. You know, sometimes there's more money in a return than for you, staying there in the first place. Yeah, Zoe Stark has absolutely no charisma. She sucks bad. Her promos have been even worse. Did you see that crappy promo she did when she attacked? Yes, I saw that. It was awful. It was awful, bro. when she did the song with the little ukulele or whatever. Oh, it was tragic. I don't know, man. Look, she only knows the WWE style. I think that she's worth a lot of money. She's a big star. She needed to go away for a while. I think she's still young enough that if she made a comeback, it'd be great. But she needed to go away. Sometimes people do need to go away for a little while, man. I'm not gonna say anything different. Or Cosmo. People have the wrong idea about Mercedes. They just want to have a reason not to like her now because her exit from WWE. To be quite honest, more people like her because she left, not the opposite. There's a lot of people who aren't really even Sasha Banks fans, who are not fans of WWE at all, and not fans of Sasha Banks in the least, but they're marks for her because she left. And they're like, oh my God, I love her. I love her. She left WWE. She's going to come to AEW. I love her. And my thing is, look, she is very, very much needed in AEW. But I can see her not being too happy about being there, especially for a little while, She's going to definitely be, she's definitely going to have an attitude, with the one women's match per show kind of thing. And I've heard that New Japan is not putting a women's match on Wrestle Kingdom this year. Like they're so that ought to be interesting. That's interesting, isn't it? They brought that women's title out specifically so they could have women's matches in New Japan, but they haven't been having women's matches in New Japan. Now I don't know if that's true or not. I just saw it on the dirt sheet. The dirt sheets might be wrong. There might be a women's match at Wrestle Kingdom, but I read on the dirt sheet that there is not going to be a women's match at Wrestle Kingdom this year. And if it was going to be one. I'm looking at this thing where this whole thing was a vehicle for Sasha Banks. She's hurt, so they're like, fuck all these other girls. We're not doing this. You know what I'm saying? We're not doing it. And that's fine. That's fine. Crossface Race, I still remember her debut promo where she sounded like she was drunk off her ass. Well, you know what? She has sounded wasted in a couple of promos, actually. Even when she was in WWE, she sounded a little out of it when it comes to her promos. I don't know what it is, but I just don't think she's a strong promo anymore. I don't know. I think she's lost sight of the character and who and what she is. AJ3 says Kyrie is done with Stardom, so Triple H and the lurch of bringing her back. Yeah, they've been talking about that for a while. It's official that she's leaving because she posted about it, but she's had like 2 last matches. Like I saw, like this is the last match, and then again, this is the last match. I'm like, so she's wrestling a different person now. But I don't know. I wouldn't be against Kyrie coming back. I like Kyrie. But it seems like whatever it is she wanted to do in Japan, it wasn't going to work out. And she had an attitude in Japan too. You could look at her and tell. She had job face when she wrestled Sasha Banks. She was not happy. she was not happy. So maybe they pissed her off too, and that's why she's leaving again. Like, I think she left WWE because she got pissed off. And I think she went back to Japan. She got married, spent some time with her husband. Then she got pissed off by Stardom. Now she's coming back. So, so she was like, fuck this. I'm out of here. Like, the Japanese people are very nice. So she's not going to ever come out and say, they was fucking with me. They was doing dumb shit with me. So I took off. She was just kind of like, I tried to conquer the United States. I failed miserably. Now I'm back in my homeland. Or something like that. Like, they try to be very nice or very self-deprecating. And then they move on. Like Saray, when she left, she didn't say anything negative about the Sailor Moon gimmick or anything. If she'd have been an American, that'd have been the first fucking thing that came out of her mouth. Or a European. They made me Sailor Moon. This sucks. I'm out of here. Like the Grizzled Young Veterans. First thing that came out of their fucking mouths is how they hated everything that they were doing. You don't see that out of Japanese wrestlers. Only Okada, because he had to play, he was embarrassed in TNA. That's it. Everybody else pretty much just, I failed miserably, but I tried my very best. And then, it doesn't, that's it. I tried my best. And it was like, what? Like, you got fucked over and, they tried to turn you into a cabbage. Whatever. In America, they complain about every goddamn thing. You can win every match except one in the United States, and people will swear you got buried. Crossface, I don't see Kyrie as a top star, but maybe that's just me. I'm tripping. I think she could have been used better than she was being used. I think her size didn't help. And that's the thing with the Japanese women when Vince was in control. They were so small that Vince didn't see them as being people who could draw money. They're small women. Kyrie was very small. Io Shirai is very small. Asuka is small too. Zelina Vega is small. Xia Li is very small. All these women are small. The difference being Asuka can at least attack viciously. She works very strong. And, she has ferocity and she can be funny. Kyrie had to try to do what Asuka was doing, and that's where you got the Kabuki Warriors from. But she doesn't have the physicality of Asuka, and her body was smaller and frailer, so she would get injured all the time. And it looked like they had lost faith in her and basically just said, "Fuck her, we're not going to be doing anything with her," and that was it. They just decided, like, look, we don't need this many tiny people running around here. And yeah, Alexa Bliss was like, she's like one of the few people of her size that actually was able to be successful in WWE. Most of the other women are entirely too small. But part of it is Alexa Bliss has the ability to talk. Kyrie being Japanese was a problem. The English barrier. But in NXT, she was really fun. She's a fun character. She's a good wrestler, great talent. It's just a size thing. Is she a credible opponent for like Rhea Ripley? I don't know. Also, it helps also when it comes to Alexa Bliss that she's multi-talented in terms of her abilities to cut a promo. Like she gets an effective babyface and a heel. She can communicate, you know. And part of it is her being a Disney adult. I think that should probably that probably helps. AJ3 says, remember Charlotte not selling any of Kyrie's stuff. Oh, yeah. I'm not surprised about that at all. I'm surprised Charlotte would do something like that. Wait a minute. Did I hear about Selena Vega explaining Naruto to Vince? Oh, my God. Could you imagine that conversation? That's probably what got her job back. She starts talking about the Atasukis and all this kind of, and Vince is just sitting there like, you know what, whatever it takes to end this conversation. You know, like, what the fuck is the Sage of Six Paths, pal? Take your check and get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? Oh my God, bro. I can't imagine. Like, it was hilarious listening to Scott Hall tell stories about explaining Scarface to Vince. I couldn't imagine somebody trying to sit Vince down and explain fucking anime to I'm about to explain how Pain is 7 people to Vince McMahon. That should be like a fucking TV show. Explaining One Piece to Vince McMahon. They're stupefied. Like, what the fuck is going on? Oh, man. QTCB, Mongo, who has a better start on the main roster, Greatest, Grayson Waller, or is that JD McDonough? Well, Grayson Waller is actually being featured. JD McDonough, he's part of a storyline. I'm gonna go with Grayson Waller. He's interacting with higher level people. G Coalition brother. Charlotte didn't just no-sell Kyrie, she stiffed her for sandbagging when she had. I remember that match. And that's when Becky Lynch had to roll her under the ring because she was knocked out and Charlotte was kicking her ass. And she was virtually fucking unconscious. And Charlotte was beating her to death. And Becky Lynch rolled her under the ring. That's the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. I had never seen one person roll another one under the ring to protect them before. Like, please, God, save her life. I don't know what else to do. Instead of just covering her body or something, I'm going to roll her under the ring. Okay, whatever it takes. Oh no, Charlotte is she's very selfish. She's very selfish. And that's partially how she got where she is. She don't give them nothing. She don't give up shit. I don't blame her though. I'm not gonna hold you up. Sometimes people are too unselfish and they end up looking like idiots. But then you get somebody like Charlotte, huge ego. I'm not giving you shit. You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to force me to sell something. I think that's what she got into it with Nia Jax about. The 2 or 3 times they got into fist fights in the ring. She was on some bullshit. Charlotte is something else though, man. She's a piece of work. It's all gonna come out in the wash eventually. Like everybody just thinks it's Becky that's the problem. Nah, Charlotte is the issue, bro. Charlotte is number 1 the issue, bro. She's a piece of work. All right, let's do this Bill Goldberg thing. Bill Goldberg says that there's no characters with depth. Well, who was he talking to, for the record? He's on Chicago Sports Podcast. Goldberg says the internal storylines I don't think are better. The characters I surely know aren't better. But I don't know. The guys that are doing their thing right now and leading the charge, they're doing a damn good job. It's just they're not deep. That's all. They're just not deep. So it's hard to have a complete different people carrying the flag and be able to hand it off to proper person and keep the. I'm trying to keep this as freaking vanilla as possible, aren't they? It's tough to have the depth, and I think they're lacking in that area. That's all. Period. End of story. I don't like getting into it. I don't like people talking shit out of sight, out of mind. So he's saying that he doesn't think that these guys have enough depth in the ring or internal characters. Now, my interesting thing is that he says internal characters, the internal storylines. I like that in that reflection, internal motivations, um, personal drive. They lack depth in that regard. I see what he means. I see what he means. I don't mean I 100% agree with it, but I would like for characters to have more internal, internal storylines, things that are mostly about them, and things that are mostly about how they feel about an issue. Like Drew McIntyre going through something right now. It's an internal story. It got stuff to do with other people, but it's mostly his own personal bitterness coming out because he felt slighted about what happened over a year ago in Wales. That's a personal internal storyline, and it actually has depth to it, because you understand what Drew McIntyre is saying, but you also understand what everybody else is saying to him. That he does eventually have to get over it, but he does have a reason to be mad, and it's a really good element to it. Goldberg himself, though, he just wanted to be Superman. He wanted to be Juperman, I would say the Ubermensch, but I probably shouldn't say that. But he wanted to be Superman, and that was his. That was his thing, He didn't want to sell too much, he didn't want to look weak. But that's part of your internal story, is you should have to overcome challenges. That's part of what's wrong with wrestling right now anyway, is people have lost the art of being a babyface. The key to being a hero is not to win all the time. The key to being a hero is to survive suffering. That's what heroism is, to stare danger in the face and survive the suffering and come out the other end a better person. That's heroism in a nutshell, regardless of what the context is. This is why everybody who considers themselves a hero defines themselves by their struggle. When Drew McIntyre stands in the ring and he starts talking about how he had to beat Brock Lesnar in 5 minutes, we know what that means in a wrestling context. Brock Lesnar is a beast. He's an animal. He's a monster. And not only did Drew McIntyre beat him, but it only took him 5 minutes to do it. In his mind, he's a hero because he went through the suffering of fighting Brock Lesnar and came out the other end, the world champion. That's what it means. Look at what they're doing with Seth Rollins right now. The problem is they don't sell Seth Rollins' suffering. He comes out dancing and prancing and wearing women's clothes. If they had focused on his suffering, if sometimes Seth Rollins isn't there because he's got a back injury, he has to take this Monday off, or he's going to do it via video and have to apologize for not being there because, Nakamura tried to kill him. And people would respect him a lot more if he sold more. Being invincible is cool and all, but people like it more when they watch you suffer. They can see your scars, and they see that you still are unbroken and unbowed. That's mostly what heroes are. And you know what? It's not wrong. It's part of the reason why Cody losing at WrestleMania was the right thing is because it put a gigantic amount of suffering and mockery on Cody Rhodes. Cody was a perfect example. Yeah. You know, that's why everybody doesn't realize he had to lose at WrestleMania. You know, he had to suffer. He had to fall apart. He had to miss. He's got to deal with that embarrassment, and he's got to bounce back from it. That matters. That's an important story element. You know, people don't get that. And this guy, I want you to keep this in your mind until tomorrow. When Roman Reigns first won the world title, he won it at Survivor Series, I think, 2016. He beat Dean Ambrose in that championship. What did they do? Instead of giving him a lengthy title run, because Roman Reigns is unbeatable and unshakable, Money in the Bank, they had Sheamus beat him same night, take the belt from him, and Roman Reigns laid in the ring, covered in confetti with tears in his eyes. But then I think it was like a week or so later, they were in Philadelphia, and they started that angle between him and Vince. And this was when Roman Reigns' failed babyface managed to get super over in Philadelphia, because the League of Nations and Vince McMahon and all these people were standing against him, and the crowd had watched him be humiliated in front of everybody. Daniel Bryan, you know, won the world title, immediately got taken from him by Randy Orton. Humiliated. He won the title again, only for it to get taken away from him again. That struggle, that suffering, is what made him a hero. Heroes are not made because they're invincible. It's because they overcome their suffering. And that suffering doesn't necessarily have to be physical. It could be emotional. It could be other types of trauma. But it has to be something. I think they should mix it up a little bit. You know? Injuries for certain people. Other types of, like, this is what they're doing right now with MJF. They're trying to galvanize the Jewish community and all the Jewish sympathizers, or whatever you want to call them, supporters, behind MJF. So they used a little bit of anti-Semitism there to show that, yes, no, he was bullied at one point. He experienced a tremendous amount of suffering, and he's going to overcome that. And you know what? It's a good story. You're not allowed to tell these kinds of stories before. Like, I'm okay. I was perfectly fine looking back on it with the Booker T Triple H story. People like you don't become world champions. I was okay with that until Booker T lost. I was okay with it up until that 3 count. Then I was like, no way. No fucking way. You can't do that. You know, you can't do it that way. You can't do it that way. You know, you can't do it that way. If you're gonna do a race, you're gonna do a race story, something like that, then the heel got to go down. Sorry, I hate to break it to you. You can't be a racist and go over. You know, you can't do it. You can't do it that way. It sucks. And then you can't undo it either. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't get a do-over on that. Now, they kind of did a do-over with Kofi Mania, where basically Vince had this whole thing where it was gonna be anybody except Kofi. And that's what made it fun. Because they didn't play on Kofi's race, but you kind of felt it was racist. That, you know, Vince is picking random white guys to be in these spots, and Kofi's like, what about me? You know? And then he eventually gets there, and it's not intentionally racist, but they're clearly playing that. They're clearly playing that game, you know. So I don't know, man. I'm okay with most kinds of stories. Look, personally, I don't like stories involving like rape. That's like the one pedophilia. That's like those are the two picadillos I really don't need. I don't really need a rape in a story. And I never need pedophilia in a story. Everything else pretty much is fair game. You know, you want to do something with race, you want to do something with gender, you want to do something with sexuality. As long as you do it the right way, somewhat tastefully, let's do it. I'm not upset by you doing Piggy James. Who cares? The right person went over. The heels got humiliated, and they got covered in cake or whatever. One of them was wearing a fat suit, which makes it even funnier. It's like there's a lot of little stories that you can tell in wrestling. You know, why limit yourself? So, yeah, Triple H overselling to the point where Booker T had to lay there forever was so offensive. Especially since that was a WrestleMania match, that was so offensive. That was awful. On the topic of heroism, imagine if the Elite had a feud where they actively got called out for how they started AEW, or almost tearing the Bullet Club apart from the inside for selfish reasons. Well, that would be great, but I'm sick of the Bullet Club. I'm fucking sick of the Bullet Club, bro. And I think that if they were going to do that, they should have did it with Jay White when he first came in. And Jay White's been there forever. There's like 3 different versions of the Bullet Club running around in AEW right now. They should. I think they missed the boat on that. I know some people want Kenny Omega and Jay White. I don't know if we'll all survive to see it or not. Somebody asked a question about villains. I'm trying to look for that now. Where is it? Where is it? Shit, I lost it. I lost that question. But I was going to talk about the depth of villains too. It's the same thing though. Like villains have to be. Villains are driven by vice, right? Heroes are driven by virtue. Villains are driven by vice. So, in order to give a villain some kind of depth, then what you're looking at is taking whatever trait the villain exemplifies and turning that into something that's almost never ending. Greed is a really good one. Pride is another good one. What would be a good example of greed or pride? These are the 2 most famous ones in wrestling right now. But Roman is pride, I guess you could say. The tribal chief. Putting himself on a stature above other people. To the point where things that don't even involve him are somehow a reflection of him. And he's a narcissist. So he sits down Jimmy Uso and he's talking about every day that Jay is a tag team champion, it's smack to my face, it's smack to the face of the bloodline. Clearly that shit ain't got nothing to do with him. How is Jay Uso being a tag team champion an offense to Roman Reigns? It really isn't. But he's taking it that way because he doesn't see that Jay should have any success that would be something that he can't control. Or how dare Jay be successful on his own? Jay needs me. Jay needs us. He'll always say us. Then he'll eventually say me. And so it leads to him trying to control other people, even when they're trying to get away from him. You know, like there's so many good villain. You know, the avarice. I think Seth Rollins is a perfect one too. You know, with JS in here talking about the breakup of the Shield. You know, when Seth Rollins decided he didn't sell out, he bought in. You know, he wanted more. He was already at the top of the industry. You know, top guy in the Shield. But it was about the group. It had to be about him. You know, had to be about me. And then it has to, you know, because it's a villainous thing, it has to pretty much be never ending. So it has to be more about me, more about me. Then they transitioned it to the Monday Night Messiah, which is about pride and ego and that kind of thing, him being a narcissist. But that was a really good one. You know, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, is perfect. You know, I mean, the character is defined by his his wealth, his greed, his ability to manipulate others with money. You know, yeah, the envy of Randy Savage. You know, him being unable to share his spotlight with Hulk Hogan and Elizabeth. You know, he very stubbornly. He's also paranoid, which I thought was great. You know, the paranoia that is, and Roman Reigns had that paranoia too for a little while. When he thought Jay was out to get him and out to steal his spot. That was good. You know, that was really good. And Savage was perfect in that role too, the destruction of the mega powers. That was great. You know, the thing is, most times they don't stick with something long enough to really establish what the motives of the bad guy are. And that's when you become generic, is when you don't have any real internal motivation to do anything. Because again, your character comes out in your actions. Actions equal character, not what you say, but what you do. So if you have a character who talks a lot but does nothing, nobody's going to care. You know, people care when you do stuff, and you should do things that are unorthodox. You know, because if you do things that are unorthodox, then it becomes character traits. It becomes individual quirks that are unique to your character. It makes you stand out. And I'm sitting here as I'm talking, I'm thinking about all the people on Raw who are incredibly bland. You know, Bronson Reed. Why do I dislike Bronson Reed? What does Bronson Reed invoke in the audience? What's the vice that is there for Bronson Reed? There wasn't one. I'll give you another good one. This one is really good. The Hall of Pain. You know, Mark Henry, based a lot on wrath. A guy who's been there for so long, you know, finally had enough. Finally had enough. As we're going to start putting people in the Hall of Pain. Going to start putting them hands on people. You know? And and that's the thing that as soon as he turned smiley babyface, that character was dead. But as long as he was big, violent, everybody was like, fuck yeah, Mark Henry rules. But then as soon as he's back to smiling babyface Mark Henry, oh no, he's a job guy. I don't know, man. Yeah, most wrestlers are bland because they don't think about this kind of stuff. If you're on the independents and you're bouncing from show to show, you don't have time to, and really don't have the opportunity to really dig into your character. Your character needs to be built up on television week to week over time. You know, you need to have things that people can remember from the last time that they saw you, that they build up on. You know, You can't do that on the independents because sometimes those independents are monthly. Who the fuck is going to remember your storyline in a month? You know, like nobody's going to remember. But weekly television is easier to follow the story. You know, character traits. And if I was in WWE, that'd be the first thing I do. I sit down and I tell everybody, if you want to be on television, you need to do two things. One, come up with a discernible character in 1 week that stands out from everybody else. Two, be able to explain in a very short amount of time what your character is all about. It needs to be something that is unique to you that can then be verbalized to the audience. Which is why when I see characters that are so similar, I just say put them together and that's it. There's no reason for you to have Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, especially on the same roster. Just put them together and be done with it. You know, there was no reason to have like Chelsea Green, Ariana Grace, and Carmella on the same roster. Just put them all together and be done with it. They all represent pretty much the same character. And that's where you could create a faction of sorts. But what is it about certain characters that makes it stand out? Interestingly enough, I wasn't watching anything actually. I was just like on Twitter, just scrolling. And I've forgotten that Imperium's original name was Ringkampf. And I remember looking at them, the original version of Imperium, with Timothy Thatcher and Axel Tischer and Marcel Bartel, who now is like Ludwig Kaiser. And they're wearing sweats and all this kind of stuff, right? And I was like, I get it. Like, because I know what, Kampf means in German. It means struggle. And I know that because I studied a little bit about Germans during World War II, that Hitler was obsessed with struggle. Because Mein Kampf means my struggle. So the idea of Ringkampf and Imperium is based off Nazi Germany anyway. The entirety of the gimmick is based off of Nazi Germany. But they, of course, put a nice little WWE sheen on it. By turning it into these sort of super athletes. And it works perfectly because it makes them stand out. It makes Gunther stand out from everybody else in terms of being a heel. It's different. You see most other people, they come out and you don't see anything about them that is different. People are starved for different shit. Yeah, ring struggle. It doesn't sound right in English, right? It sounds shitty in English. And it's not going to be, it's going to be too on the nose if you do it on the United States. If they would have just said, "Oh, we just gonna call your stable ring struggle," people would have been like, "That's stupid as fuck." But if you'd have called it ring kampf, they'd be like, "Oh shit, they're Nazis." As soon as you hear that, you're like, "You're fucking Nazis," and you'd be like, "Well, they are kind of Nazis, bro." But by changing the name to Imperium, the logo and everything with the Roman columns and all that kind of stuff, they changed it a little bit. They gave it a nice little. They're still fucking Nazis though, but it's like they got a nice little sheen to it, But the original version is just because they're not walking around in swastikas. Like, did you see Gunther's fucking haircut? He looks like a fucking Nazi commander. All right, you can't. And it's just how he looks. Now that he doesn't have all that chubby shit around his face again, he doesn't have that baby chub around his face. He really looks like it, It's oh boy. If they'd have gone with Ringkampf and Gunther Stark, brother. Oh my God. Here's the weird thing. The people who are most offended by it know Ringkampf exists. That's the thing that really throws me for a loop. You know, these people know Ringkampf exists. So the idea that they're upset that they're doing Nazi references is like, are you really upset? Gunther is Austrian. Hitler is Austrian. Like they're basically fucking whatever. I would go more Italy with it though. I would basically go like he's more like Mussolini. But I think they should adopt kind of like and this would be a nice little tweak on their character. It'll make them different. Like in Ring of Honor, they had a group called the Foundation. It was Jay Lethal, two boring guys, Hot Sauce, Tracy Williams or whatever, and the Squid, the Octopus, Jonathan Gresham. And they were obsessed with rules. They were heels that were obsessed with rules. That would be perfect for Imperium. You know, that little tweak right there where if they were obsessed with rules and making sure everybody followed the rules, if they were obsessed with order, that would be perfect for Imperium. Why they haven't gone that route, I don't know. You know, that would be perfect. Like if Gunther was saying the ring is sacred, so there will be no cheating, you know, and yet he still kind of cheats or does underhanded stuff and basically breaks his own rules, that would be perfect. It would be even better if he didn't cheat, you know, but that would be something that could really work for Imperium. It could work for Gunther, I should say, at least. Probably not for Vinci and Kaiser, though. Gunther should grow a Hitler stash. Somebody should drop like Photoshop one on his face. You'll probably get banned from Twitter or something like that. Yeah, Gunther without the baby fat all around him, he looks incredibly serious. Like he was already a big dude, but the baby fat was pretty funny. But not once he got rid of that, man, he looked like a stone soldier. You know. Yeah, Imperium is basically Ivan Drago. Yeah. You know, except for he's not Russian, he's German. What team? We're talking about the Foundation in Ring of Honor. It was during the last days of the original Ring of Honor. Jay Lethal and Jonathan Gresham were running around incredibly obsessed with the rules, you know, and making sure that this business was about wrestling, not fighting, wrestling. No closed fists. You know, you break on the count of 3 and all this kind of stuff. Even to the point where they use Jonathan Gresham to bring back the pure title. There's a lot of little things you could do, you know, that could definitely take a character to the next level. A heel that doesn't cheat, not because he thinks he's above cheating, but because he has some kind of internal commitment to not cheating. It will become honorable eventually, and people will turn him into a babyface, which is why it's probably not smart to do it for a long term. But for Gunther to stand there and talk about how the mat is sacred, and if he was to like take out people who are clowning in the ring, you know, people like Otis who are doing like tarantulas and all this kind of stuff, or not tarantulas, what do they call them? Caterpillars and shit. If they like beat up comedy acts for mocking the ring or whatever, that could be interesting shit. They'll never do it though. G. Cole's brother said, no, the real reason they were upset had nothing to do with Nazis. I knew it from the jump. They never stopped complaining about WWE changing people's names. Oh yeah. It ended up working out fine for him, didn't it? Poor Gunther. Poor Gunther. I'm sorry, what was that? Poor Walter. Oh, let's wrestle matches with no story. Typical Monday Night Raw now. Lethal and Gresham ended up facing each other in one of the last real ROH World Championship matches. Yep, they sure did. Yeah, like, here's the crazy thing that people don't get is that there's two concepts called an Apollonian concept and a Dionysian concept. The Apollonian concept is, based off of, I believe it's the Greek god Apollo, who is the god of the sun. He's also the god of order. So typically Apollo is a hero because he's the god of the sun. But you can also look at Apollo in terms of being a heel because he's obsessed with order. Because order restricts freedom. It restricts creativity. People who value freedom and creativity don't necessarily want the boundaries. Now, this leads us to Dionysus, who is the god of wine and drink. He's the god of the party, sex, orgies, etc. There are no boundaries. So you can look at him as the god of chaos, right? And people hate chaos. They want order from that perspective. They want somebody to say, no, don't do this. No, don't do that. But they don't want an excessive amount of that. If you had some heels that came along and they had an excessive amount of rules, or in fact had their own fucking rules, like they made up like a rule book for matches that they would have, similar to Raven's rules, was basically no disqualification, but they would do it in the opposite, where they increase rules like no over the top, no can't throw guys over the top rope, no jumping off the top rope, that kind of shit. That would drive people fucking nuts. People would fucking hate that. They would hate that. They would get a hell of a lot of heat for that. I don't think they'll have the balls to do it though. Yep, they'd probably never do it. What was it? Drew Gulak safe and sound on the ground. This was great. What's more boring, Raw or Dr. Chris Featherstone? He was doing a show with EC3 and EC3 fell asleep. Oh shit! People have said I have a soothing voice, but I've fallen asleep listening to people talk before, so I'm not even gonna blame. I don't know if I was on a podcast with them when it happened though. That's kind of cold. He said G Coalition brother don't like how Triple H sabotaged the Peaky Blinders fight night gimmick just so he could try to turn Butch back into regular Pete Dunne. Yeah, that's a good statement right there. That's a good statement right there. Because Butch was getting over as sort of scrappy dude. And now he's doing this and it ain't hitting. My thing is if you're gonna have these guys, and Sheamus's gimmick is that, he drunk an Irishman, he drunk Irishman brawler. Well, he should hang out with other brawlers. That's why Butch worked with the Brawling Brutes. He was the smallest but the fiercest. He subverted expectations. He was the toughest of the three, despite being the smallest one. And he was the fastest and more technically proficient, more vicious, more cruel, actually, with the bending of the fingers and everything. Like Sheamus is a big slugger, powerhouse. And then the powerhouse was oh shit, I forgot my man's name already. The big meathead, but you had the individual pieces there to have an archetypal 6-man tag match. Butch in there doing all the fighting and the grappling. Big Ridge Holland comes in to do the power spots. And when things break down into a fight, you got Sheamus. So that was perfect. I don't know why Triple H is obsessed with that fucking ring, man. I don't know what's going on. It's him growing up watching the NWA. That's what it is. He grew up watching fucking Harley Race and Ric Flair and all that shit. And now he's trying to turn WWE into that. There's a reason that shit went out of business, bro. I don't know. I hope he gets okay. Bill Watts will be. Yeah, that's why people hated Bill Watts though, because he understood something that other people didn't get, and that is if you have rules, and then you have rules for heels to break, you know, because if there, this is what's the problem with ECW. There was no fucking rules, so how are the heels cheating if there is no rules? That's the Dionysian concept. There are no laws if everything's legal. That's the purge at this point, right? If everything is legal, then it's the purge. But if you are in a stifling society where everything is against the rules or everything is against the law, then that's in some ways even worse. That is worse. That's a terrible nightmare, to be stuck in an overly orderly society. You know, that's what China is. That's what North Korea is. You know, like, you know, as bad as we look at like Portland or San Francisco, where it's chaos and people are doing drugs in the street and shitting in the street, would you rather that, or would you rather a society where you can't use your bank card because you said something on Twitter that the government didn't like? You know, if those were your only two options, which one would you rather have? A society where you're free enough to shit in the street, or a society where it's so restrictive that if you said something in a phone call that somebody overheard, they'll shut your whole phone shit down? You know, in California, they're gonna get best of both. They're gonna get both, by the way. You're gonna have a society where people can shit in the street and do drugs, and also you're gonna get your bank account taken from you because you said fuck the Jews or some shit like that. So just don't make me think that I'm propping up the U.S. here. All right, it's time to start wrapping this thing up. I know I started late, but gonna start wrapping it up. Yeah, I don't look. He better. Triple H needs to stop listening to these people, man. These people don't know nothing about nothing. They're boring Joes. They just come to see the stars, man. They want to see some stuff. I don't think you should just treat the characters like action figures and just start slamming them together, which is what like Vince Russo does. Here's a random heel turn for no reason. Like, this guy's not going anywhere. Why would you turn him heel? You know, why are we doing this? I watched something that was incredibly stupid the other day. It was so stupid that I literally walked away and said, no wonder I stopped watching wrestling. I watched Judgment Day 98. Okay. I don't know what made me put that pay-per-view on. It's probably because I hadn't seen it in however long it's been. But the main event of the show was Undertaker versus Kane for the WWF title, with Stone Cold Steve Austin as the referee. The building was packed. The angle was that if Stone Cold Steve Austin does not raise the hand of the new world champion, he was going to be fired. That's a good hook. It forces Austin to do what he don't want to do, which is give up that world title. He's already had it taken away from him. But he's got to respect, honor, and humble himself into crowning the next world champion without getting beat. Instead of doing that, they had Austin beat up Undertaker and Kane. And then he counted three for no good reason. Just 1, 2, 3. Nobody's covering anybody. And the crowd pops because Steve Austin counted three. Then he announced himself as the winner. and the crowd is going nuts. Bro, I was so fucking pissed. I fucking hate the S, man. I was like, you know what? That sucks so bad. There's gonna be more than 100 people when Sting retires. Trust me, that building will probably be full. To see Sting's last match, it's gonna be full. I just hate that it's not gonna be as magical. I don't think AEW has never done anything like this before. So I'm interested in how they're gonna do it. Are they gonna put together like a video package, or what they're gonna do? How are they gonna tell the story of Sting? Are they gonna put it to music? Like what's gonna happen? You know, I'm very interested in how they're gonna do it. All right, man. Y'all stay safe out there. They're gonna have a Friday video. I will be putting it together soon. It'll be up at approximately the same time tomorrow. Y'all gonna love this. It's fun. It's a fun video. Trust me. It's long, but it's fun. It's because it's taking place in AEW. It's going to be against Bones. You know, there's just no way around it. Cosmic Popcorn. That's a hell of a name. All right, y'all. Thank you for your time, bros and sisters. I'll talk to you guys later.